Rachel Carter had just become Rachel Moore. 26, beautiful, and sweet as cherry pie, Rachel had married Daniel Moore, a quiet man in his early 30s who worked in IT at a nearby firm. The ceremony was small but elegant. White roses, soft piano music, and guests who couldn't stop smiling. "She looked like an angel," said Mrs. Jenkins, the neighbor, "like she stepped out of a dream." Rachel and Daniel had been dating for only 9 months before tying the knot. Some people whispered that it was fast, but Rachel was head over heels in love, and Daniel seemed like a kind soul. Besides, he had just bought them a pretty two-story house on Willow Lane. It had a red door, a backyard with tall trees, and a porch swing Rachel adored. The first 2 weeks of marriage were heaven. Rachel posted happy photos on social media, cooking dinner together, holding hands at the lake, dancing in their living room. No one saw it coming. On the morning of June 1st at 6:47 a.m., Daniel Moore called 911. "My wife, she's dead," he cried. "There's blood everywhere. Please, someone, help." When the police arrived, Rachel's body was found lying at the bottom of the staircase, her white nightgown soaked in blood. Her skull had been crushed. A heavy brass candle holder was lying near her hand. She was only 26. The coroner confirmed it was blunt force trauma, not an accident, not a fall, murder. Maplewood was stunned. The town cried. The pastor wept during Sunday service. The local bakery closed for a day in her memory. Daniel, meanwhile, was shattered, or so he seemed. "I loved her," he told the police, holding back tears. "I don't understand who would do this." But something didn't sit right with Detective Margot Rains. A 58-year-old woman with salt and pepper hair and a sharp eye. Margot had been in law enforcement for over 30 years. She had seen cheaters, liars, and killers. She had seen fake tears and real grief. And when she looked at Daniel Moore's face, she noticed two things. One, his eyes were dry. Two, there was no picture of Rachel in the living room, not even one from the wedding. "Odd," she murmured. Detective Rains ordered the scene to be preserved. Every fingerprint, every item, every smudge was to be recorded. No assumptions, no skipping steps. This wasn't just a tragedy. This was murder. And Margot knew someone in Maplewood wasn't who they pretended to be. The police sealed off the red-doored house on Willow Lane with yellow crime scene tape. Neighbors watched from behind curtains. Some stood across the street whispering. "That poor girl," one woman said. "Do you think the husband did it?" another whispered. Inside the house, Detective Margot Rains walked slowly through the hallway. The scene had been cleared. Rachel's body was already with the coroner. But Margot believed houses told stories. You just had to listen. The living room was neat. Too neat. The couch pillows were stiff and perfectly arranged. No blanket tossed over the side. No coffee cups. No slippers. It didn't feel like a newlywed home. It felt staged. She made her way to the kitchen. Again, spotless. A grocery list on the fridge read, milk, eggs, cinnamon, pasta. It was written in large, loopy handwriting. "Is this Rachel's?" Margot asked Officer Henley, who was dusting the cabinets. "Looks like it. Daniel said she liked baking." But something was wrong. Rachel's phone was on the kitchen counter. Screen cracked, no case. The last message was sent at 11:16 p.m., the night before she died. It was to her best friend, Lila Hart. "Something feels wrong. Call you tomorrow." Margot raised an eyebrow. "What felt wrong?" She picked up the phone carefully with gloves and bagged it for evidence. Then she climbed the stairs. The bedroom was simple. A queen-size bed, gray blankets, one bedside table on each side. Only Rachel's had a book, the notebook, and a hairbrush. Daniel's was empty. The wedding photo was missing here too. In fact, Margot noticed there were no photos of Rachel anywhere in the house except in a small frame near the staircase. It had a crack across the glass, like someone had stepped on it. "Odd," she muttered again. Downstairs, she questioned Daniel Moore. He looked tired, pale. His hands shook as he held a mug of coffee. "I found her at the bottom of the stairs," he repeated for the third time. "I heard a thud. I ran out of the bedroom and she was just lying there." "Did she often get up at night?" Margot asked calmly. He nodded. "Sometimes to get water or check her phone? I don't know. And the candle holder, did she carry it with her often? He looked confused. Number, it stays in the hallway. So how did it end up near her body? Daniel blinked. Maybe she grabbed it when she slipped? Margot didn't respond. She simply wrote something in her notebook. Then she asked, "Can I see your hands, Mr. Moore?" He raised them. His palms were red. One had a faint cut between the fingers. How'd you get that? Daniel looked down, surprised. I guess when I held her, I didn't even notice. But Margot wasn't convinced. As she stepped outside into the summer air, she met Lila Hart, Rachel's best friend, who had just arrived. She told me something didn't feel right, Lila said. She sent me a message last night, said Daniel was acting strange, controlling. I begged her to come stay with me, but she said no. Margot's jaw tightened. It wasn't just a tragic death. It was a warning ignored. And now Rachel was gone. But the truth was still inside that house, waiting to be found. Detective Margot Raines returned to the Willow Lane house early the next morning. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, and the air was thick with silence. No wind, no cars, just the feeling that something important was waiting to be discovered. She requested the full house be researched, especially the rooms that weren't used often. The guest room? Officer Henley asked. Yes, she replied. Let's see what Daniel Moore didn't want us to find. The guest room was down the hall, opposite the master bedroom. The door creaked open. At first glance, the room looked untouched. Pale blue curtains, a made bed, a small nightstand with a lamp. But Margot had learned a long time ago that secrets rarely hide in plain sight. She opened the closet first. Inside were boxes, a folded ironing board, and a suitcase. The suitcase was locked. Henley, she said, holding it up, bring this to the lab. I want it opened carefully. While waiting, Margot turned her attention to the bookshelf. Most of the books were untouched, but one paperback was placed awkwardly, Gone Girl. She pulled it out and noticed a folded piece of paper inside. It was a handwritten letter. Rachel's handwriting. Daniel, I don't know who you really are anymore. You won't let me visit Lila. You went through my phone again. You keep asking where I go during the day. This isn't love. It feels like a cage. If anything happens to me, I just want people to know I was scared. Rachel Margot froze for a moment. This wasn't just a marriage with a few problems. This was a woman crying out for help, and nobody had heard her. She immediately sealed the letter into an evidence bag and radioed the team. Bring Daniel Moore in for more questioning. Now. Back at the station, Daniel looked more annoyed than sad. I told you everything already, he said, arms crossed. I think there's more you haven't told me, Margot replied. She placed the letter on the table. His face dropped the moment he saw it. Where did you find that? In the guest room, inside a book. She leaned in. Did you read it, Daniel? He said nothing. Why did Rachel write this? Why was she afraid of you? I don't know, he said. We had a few arguments. That's normal. Normal couples don't write letters like this, Margot said sharply. Normal husbands don't have their wives murdered with a candle holder at 2 a.m. Daniel's jaw clenched. I didn't kill her. And yet you waited 25 minutes to call 911, she shot back. Why? He looked up, panicked. I was in shock. I didn't know what to do. Just then, Henley entered with the unlocked suitcase. We found something, he said. Inside the suitcase were women's clothes, clothes that didn't belong to Rachel. Also inside, a framed photo of Daniel with another woman, his arm around her, both smiling, intimate. The photo was dated 5 months ago. Who is she? Margot asked. Daniel's lips tightened. Her name is Elise. She used to live in Chicago. It was before Rachel. It meant nothing. Why was her photo in a locked suitcase in your guest room? She asked coldly. He said nothing. Margot leaned back in her chair. Rachel didn't know the real Daniel. More, but I think I'm starting to. Outside the station, clouds were gathering. A storm was coming, and Margot knew. It wasn't just over the town of Maplewood. It was inside the heart of this case. The sky over Maplewood darkened as Detective Margot Raines made her way to the last known address of Elise Carter, the woman from the photo. According to Daniel's phone records and credit card charges, He had made 3 trips to Chicago in the last 5 months, all unmentioned to the police. Each time he claimed to be on business, but the records said otherwise. Elise lived in a small apartment above a coffee shop near West Belmont. She opened the door with hesitation, her eyes red and tired. "I knew someone would come eventually," she said before Margot could even introduce herself. "You're Elise Carter?" Margot asked. "Yes," she nodded, stepping aside to let the detective in. "You're here about Daniel, aren't you?" Margot nodded. "You know he's married?" Elise gave a bitter laugh. "I didn't at first. I found out 2 months ago. I ended it right then, blocked his number. I didn't want to be part of whatever game he was playing." Margot sat across from her. The small apartment smelled like cinnamon and coffee. It felt lived in, warm, nothing like the cold silence of the Willow Lane house. "When did you last speak to him?" Margot asked. "About 6 weeks ago. He showed up at my work," Elise said. "He said he loved me, said he had made a mistake marrying Rachel. He even offered to leave her. I told him to go to hell." "Did he seem angry? Desperate?" "Yes, very. He had this look in his eyes. Like if he couldn't have me, no one could." Margot took notes quickly. "Did he ever talk about Rachel? Anything that stood out?" Elise hesitated. "Once he said she was too soft, that she didn't challenge him, said she cried too easily." Margot's pen stopped mid-sentence. "He said that?" she asked. "Yes. Then he said something that gave me chills." "What was it?" Elise stared out the window. "He said, 'Sometimes I wish she'd just disappear.'" A long silence passed. "Would you be willing to testify to that?" Margot asked. Elise nodded slowly. "If it helps, yes. Rachel didn't deserve to die. She was innocent." Back in Maplewood, Margot returned to the station and met with her tech team. "Dig deeper into Daniel's devices. I want his emails, texts, everything." Within hours, they found something shocking: an encrypted folder on Daniel's laptop titled Life Plan. Inside were notes detailing financial targets, property transfers, and a timeline. The timeline ended on June 1st, the same day Rachel was murdered. "Rachel had just increased her life insurance policy last month," Officer Henley reported. "Guess who the sole beneficiary was?" Margot didn't need to guess. Daniel Moore. Later that evening, Daniel was brought back in. Margot placed Elise's sworn statement in front of him. Then she added the insurance policy. And finally, she placed the life plan timeline file on the table. Daniel stared at the papers. His hands trembled. His lips twitched. But still, he said, "None of this proves I killed her." Margot leaned in slowly. "No, Daniel, but it proves motive, planning, and intent. All I need now is the missing piece." She stood up. "And I'll find it." It was nearly midnight when Detective Margot Raines sat in her office, staring at the board full of evidence. Rachel's voice echoed in her mind. "If anything happens to me, I just want people to know I was scared." That wasn't just fear, it was foresight. Rachel had known something was coming. But what had she done about it? Margot flipped through the case file again, looking for anything she might have missed. That's when she paused on a small detail from the original crime scene log. Item 17, small USB flash drive found in Rachel's jewelry box. It hadn't been examined yet. She called the evidence room immediately and had the drive brought to her. Plugging it into her secure laptop, Margot found one folder labeled Backup. Inside were 8 short video clips, dated from 2 weeks before Rachel's death to the night of the murder. The first few videos were shaky, recorded from what looked like a hidden camera. In each one, Daniel could be heard yelling. Rachel barely spoke. "Where were you today? Why didn't you answer your phone? You think you can lie to me, Rachel?" Margot clenched her jaw. These weren't just arguments. They were verbal attacks. Then came the final video, time-stamped 1:04 a.m. on June 1st. Rachel sat on the bed. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. The camera was hidden behind a picture frame. She spoke directly to it. "If you're watching this, something happened to me. Daniel's been getting worse. I know he's hiding something. I found emails to a woman named Elise. I haven't confronted him yet. I'm scared. I don't know what he's capable of anymore." Flickering candles on her porch. the whisper of her name in church prayer lists. Detective Margot Rains had closed the case with every piece accounted for, except one. There was something about Rachel's final days that still tugged at her. Rachel had set up that hidden camera with great care. She'd documented her fear. She'd written a letter and buried it in a book. She knew her life was at risk, but Margot couldn't shake the feeling. Rachel had done more. She had prepared for something after her death. One September morning, Margot returned to the Moore house, now locked, awaiting probate court decisions. The garden in the backyard had grown wild, tangled with late summer weeds and sun-dried roses. A soft breeze carried the scent of soil and forgotten things. Margot walked the edge of the flower bed, remembering the first day she saw it. Rachel had planted everything herself, the neighbors had said. She knelt near the bird bath and noticed something strange. The solar-powered garden light flickered. Even though the day was bright, she twisted it from the ground. It didn't feel like the others. Heavier, unbalanced. Unscrewing the base, she found a small sealed plastic bag taped inside. Inside the bag was a folded piece of paper and a tiny SD card. Rachel had left one more breadcrumb. Back at the station, Margot inserted the SD card into her laptop. The video started with Rachel sitting on a picnic blanket in the garden. The light was soft, golden. She looked calmer than in any of the other videos. If you're seeing this, I'm probably already gone. I'm sorry for hiding so much. I didn't know who I could trust, but I knew someone smart would come looking. There's one thing I couldn't say on the other recordings. Rachel swallowed hard. Her hands clutched a teacup. Daniel didn't just cheat. He threatened my parents. He said if I ever left him, he'd ruin them. Said he'd accuse my dad of fraud, plant fake evidence at their home. He had friends, dangerous ones, who owed him favors. He bragged about it after a few drinks. That's why I stayed. I wasn't just afraid for me. I was afraid for them. If he killed me, please protect my parents. Make sure nothing happens to them. Rachel's eyes locked onto the lens, strong and steady. And thank you for believing me, for not letting me vanish. The screen faded to black. Margot sat back in her chair, hands trembling slightly. Rachel's voice had reached beyond the grave. Again. This final recording not only confirmed Daniel's motives, but also hinted at deeper crimes. With the SD card as evidence, a second investigation was quietly launched into Daniel's business ties, money laundering, fraud, and coercion. Rachel had started a ripple that would take down more than just her husband. She had lit a fire with nothing but her fear and her will. 6 months later, a small memorial garden was planted at Maplewood Central Park. A sign stood by the rose bushes, next to a bench etched with her name, in memory of Rachel Moore. She spoke when no one could hear, and the world listened. Detective Margot Rains visited often. She never met Rachel in life, but in every step of the investigation, it felt like they'd worked together, a victim who wouldn't stay silent, and an investigator who refused to walk away. Together, they uncovered the truth, piece by piece, and in the end, justice didn't just speak, it bloomed.